I really do believe Europe needs Bitcoin. I think that the euro has been a failed experiment for European countries, and now you're looking at the activity that the ECB is taking and the restrictions on people's money and the rhetoric from the ECB around how to kind of control and manage the population with a central bank digital currency. I really do think that the ECB is going down and Europe is going down the wrong direction. I don't know how long they're going to be able to keep it together, but I know that the longer that they continue down this direction, the worse it's going to get for European citizens. And the more Europeans are going to need to get Bitcoin, withdraw those Bitcoins, and do whatever they can to maintain their level of sovereignty. So I see people in the chat talking about financial advice. I don't think that there's financial advice. I think there's life advice. Like life advice is make sure you take care of yourself, make sure you have sovereignty, make sure that you're using the tools at your at your disposal, and make sure that you and your family are not being put in a situation that could compromise your well-being in the short to medium term. So there's been a lot of victims to really, really bad things happening. So what can you do to try to protect yourself? And I think Bitcoin is one of those things. So Bitcoin is absolutely one of those things. And Ansel has been talking about as the euro has issues, the demand for dollars and U.S. equities is going to skyrocket. The U.S. financial institutions will implement their strength, but so will Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is almost like a relief valve that is permissionless, that can be owned and actually can be European, right? So like American equities could never be European, but Bitcoin that is owned by Europeans, that is something that can kind of come back to and revitalize whatever's happening there.
Yeah, and if you go back a couple episodes, I think you got to go back on the audio version of FedWatch, where I talked about fragmentation risk in Europe, and I dove into a lot of the differences between U.S. internal fragmentation, European internal fragmentation, and then like an external global reserve currency fragmentation. And it's very interesting kind of insights that you can get from that. I think that, say, Italy wants to leave the European Union, or I would say the Eurozone, right? If they want to leave the common currency, then they have to launch their own currency. But who would they have to fight? Well, they have to fight George Soros. They have to fight Klaus Schwab, all these globalists that want to keep them in there. So they will attack the currency. Any new currency that Italy launches, that it's going to be attacked into the ground by these short sellers and all that stuff. Just the same way Soros tried to take down the British pound, right? Well, that the new lira in Italy will be much easier to do that to. Well, how can they fight against that? They back it with Bitcoin, or they back it with gold. Italy does have a lot of gold. Technically, they own gold that's held in the United States, but they could easily back it with Bitcoin, and that would be a way for these countries to get out of these monetary unions that they have. The European Union. I guess if you wanted to say everyone's on a global dollar union because it's the dollar is the world reserve currency. If they want to do that, they could use Bitcoin to launch a new currency, or to do something like El Salvador is doing, where they have a parallel system of US dollar and Bitcoin. That gives them a tool to fight against launching of a new currency. So I think that's a very interesting idea. Also, eventually I expect the US dollar to be backed by Bitcoin, and that could be coming up, in 10 years time. We'll have to see how this develops, but to get out of a credit bubble that is pushing down with deflationary pressure, and you can't get out of a credit bubble, then you have to go to a new currency. So that's one of my big narratives. I want to shift from an inflation narrative in Bitcoin to a deflation narrative, where the only thing, as far as I can see, is low growth, low inflation in dollars, and economic crises after economic crises. And so to get out of that, you have to change the money. And that's where Bitcoin comes in. Bitcoin will change the form of the money and allow a deflationary spiral to take place.